Let's look at budgeting and reports for internal orders. Budgets for internal orders controls the amount being spent for that particular order. So if you assign a budget for an internal order, for example $1,000, then you cannot exceed more than $1,000. That's what it basically means. Budget is actually like a control. Now you can set up an initial budget for the life of the order. That means throughout the order till the order gets closed, that you can consume that budget. Or you can separate it by fiscal years. For example, you can assign for the life of the order $1,000, but you can restrict by fiscal years. For example, for fiscal year 2016, you can restrict $300. Fiscal year 2017, you can mention is $400. And for 2018, again $300. So you can break that down by each fiscal year. So the $1,000 is the overall budget for the order, but you're restricting it by how much you can spend for each fiscal year also. So you have that option also. Or you can just assign it for the overall life of the order without splitting into fiscal years. Now you can assign the initial budget, and you feel like that the budget amount is not enough and you need to increase it. You have the option of increasing the budget. The wording in SAP is used as supplement. The supplement, of course, is like additional thing or additive thing. We call it as supplements, like vitamin supplements and so on. So that word is used instead of increasing budget. In SAP, when you want to actually increase the budget, the transaction code for this is called budget supplement. So using the supplement function, you can increase the budgets. Similarly, if you feel like that you have over assigned the budget initially, then you can go and reduce the budget. That is called returns in SAP. So this method is better than going actually inside the internal order and changing the amount of the initial budget, because this gives you tracking. Because every setting that you do for the budget, assigning initial amount for the budget, assigning a supplement amount, or assigning a return amount, all of this gets tracked by individual documents. So it's better that instead of going and changing the initial budget, that you use the option supplement or returns if you want to make any changes to the budgets, because this will have a tracking changes. So it tells you who made the changes, at what time and what date and so on. So all this information is tracked by individual documents. These are all budget documents for the internal orders. And of course you must maintain a budget profile in the order type. In the example that we created in the internal order master data, we maintain a budget profile that is 1, many zeros followed by a 1. So that's the budget profile we maintain. It's a default one given by SAP. It's enough for most of our tasks. So you must maintain a budget profile for you in the internal order type if you want to assign budgets to that particular order created under the order types. Now let's look at maintaining the budget profile in the system. So for this you need to go to the SAP IMG menu and go to Controlling, Internal Orders, Budgeting and Availability Control, and under that you have Maintain Budget Profile. The short transaction code for this is OKOB. So let's execute this budget profile and click on Maintain Budget Profile, the first one. And you can see by default there are few budget profiles given in the system. This is the default one which we have used in our order type. That is many zeros followed by 1. For now I'll just call it Profile 1. And the text is given here, General Budget Profile. Now do not make any changes to this, because this will affect all the other clients and company codes within this client who use this budget profile. So if you want to make any changes to this, please copy this budget profile. You can just click on this and select Copy As. I'm just going to show you how to do that also. And here you can give it a ID. I'm just going to call it C1, just to call it a copy of 1. Copy of 1. And you can make the necessary changes over here. Now for example, let's look at the first few frames. The time frame, this tab over here, it shows the past and future, and you can see it's a 2 here and 3 here. This means from your fiscal year, so let's say you are in fiscal year 2016, you can put budgets for previous 2 fiscal years. Let's say if you put number 2 here, it means the previous 2 fiscal years. That is for fiscal year 2014 and 2015. You can assign the budgets. So you might be asking, why do you want to track this old information? I'm just going to go forward only. I need to put the budgets. Well, just for the system auditing purposes, you might have migrated from your new system, or you might not have created the internal orders for your specific object, but you still had budgets control previously, and you want to keep a tracking of how much you actually had budget control earlier, the amounts you have entered for those fiscal years. So then you have the option of entering many different past fiscal years budgeted values. It's purely for informational purposes only. So if you put number 2 here, you can actually put budget controls, for budget values for the previous 2 fiscal years. Of course, they will not apply to the actual fiscal year. Then you have future. This will allow you to plan for your future fiscal year budgets. So if you're in 2016, so if you put 3 as a future number over here, it means you can put budgeted values for 2017, 2018 and 2019. If you put 5 over here, it goes on for another few more years also. Now this will actually control the budget for the future fiscal years when you start making any postings in the system. So I'm just going to put it as number 5. And you have the option to have total values and annual values. Better you tick both, so you can give an overall budget, and you can also divide it by the number of fiscal years and divide this total value by different fiscal year values, so you can assign the budget control for each fiscal year. Next you have the currency translation. This is on exchange rate type. What's the exchange rate type used? M. This is more discussed in financial accounting. M is the median rate between the buying rate and the selling rate, which the central bank decides. And the value date is your actual from which date the exchange rate should take on. You should leave this space blank because it should take from the actual transaction date. You should not assign a date over here, and the exchange rate should not be defined from this particular date. And you can see decimal places. This allows you to put the budget in 2 decimal places. So if you want to put like $1,050.20, you can put that because it allows you to 2 decimal places. You can ignore this section because we're not looking at any investment type of orders or investment type of budgets. Let's come to another important field over here, which is the availability control. So you can see availability control we'll discuss in the next few slides. This will give you the reports where you can see the budgeted amount, the actual consumed amount, the committed amount, and the available amount. That is just a small calculation of budget minus actual minus committed. So that option is coming through the availability type setting over here. And you can also need to make availability control active. We'll see how to do that later. And here you can see automatic activation during budget allocation. So because if you set the indicate as 1, as soon as you assign the budgets, the availability control also gets activated. If you put 0, that means there will not be any availability control. Do not put 0 because there's no point actually setting up the budget profile and without having any availability control activated. And 2 is for background activation, that is to do automatic. That is to do an activation via the background setting, background program setting, which of course you can do it for all internal orders at a later stage. But for now, default, just leave it as the number 1 over here. Another important field you can see over here is a budgeting currency. So you can either define the budgeting currency in your controlling area currency or the actual internal orders object currency. Another third option is the transaction currency. The actual transaction is going to happen in. For example, why they are given this option is you might be in a home country where your controlling area currency might be in Australian dollars, but you are doing a marketing campaign in Singapore and all the postings are going to be happening in Singaporean dollars. So you would actually want to budget the internal order using the Singaporean dollar currency. So then you can actually create the internal order using Singaporean dollars, and you select this option object currency, so you can assign the budget for that particular internal order in Singaporean dollars itself. So that gives you these options. If you do it in transaction currency, it's actually what the transaction is going to be happening in. So that if let's say you might actually be creating the internal orders in Australian dollars, but you're going to have transaction in Singaporean dollars, But you can also have the option to select by transaction currency as well and assign the budget in the transaction currency. But for now, and most commonly, the method used is the controlling the currency, because usually you budget everything in your home country environment, and later you can post the transactions in different currencies. However, the actual budget you would want to control using your home currency. So these are your general settings that you need to set up for your budget profile. You can give it you can always copy the existing one, do some changes, put some text, anything you want over here. Press enter in your keyboard. Just press OK to execute, and you can save the transaction. And you can see by default the C1 is coming up over there. But the budget profile that we'll use in our internal order settings, we'll use many zeros followed by 1, that is profile number 1. For our order types, that's what we already set up. Let's just go there and check that again. Exit the transaction. Let's press yes. OK to continue. Maintain budget profile in order types. Now we check that one, the order type which we created early in our presentation. Let's check that. I think it's starting with the Z.